did come out, and I had laid down for 10 minutes, I think. And the blinds were turned the wrong way, so as the sun was setting, I just kept getting this flicker in mine. I just got up. I was like, well, no nap for me today. That was okay. Why'd you laugh at that? Oh, but the highlight of my day was studying the Word of God. I can tell you that. I love to study the Word. The things you find, even after you've studied it, you go back and you study it again, you're like, well, I didn't see that, you know. And sometimes I think that's for a reason. The Lord reveals things to us, and He likes it when we search matters out. You know, it's the treasure of kings to search out something that God has kept kind of hidden, and He wants you to search His Word. He wants you to dig for it, you know. We've come a long way in Genesis already. We've already been through the pre-flood, or what we call prehistory. We went through Noah and his sons and the genealogies. We talked about how Abraham learned of God and how God told him to get out of his father's land and get away from there and go to a place that He'd show him, and that He would bless Abraham. And so we see last week that after he deceived Pharaoh a little bit, and Pharaoh was after his wife, God sent the plagues on Pharaoh, and he learned what Abraham had done, and he kicked Abraham out of the country. He goes, "Get out of here! You almost had me killed." And so he kicked him out, but he received a lot of goods and servants, and he is accumulating quite a family and quite a tribe, if you will. So he's gathering people. And we're going to find out tonight that, he has 318 trained men that can go and fight. So he has a pretty significant household at this point. And we know that he gave Lot the choice of land of where they could graze their cattle, because the herdsmen were starting to argue with one another. And Lot, we explained, he saw with his eyes, and he wanted the best. And so he went over there, and Abraham's like, well, I've got a promise from God, the Creator, so I'm going to be taken care of regardless, because he keeps His word. And, Abraham's faith was counted to him as righteousness because he believed what God said. He believed what God said. So he was content, and he was making his way, and we find that Lot went down, and in Sodom he sat at the gates, which means he was on like the city council there. So he was pretty prominent. But we talked about how they were both, God's children. They were both, but Lot was more of a worldly person. He had his eyes on the world, okay? Whereas, Abraham walked by faith, not by sight. And that brings us to chapter 14. Now, I did give out some homework. Anybody remember what the homework was? The chisel deck. All right, we'll get to that when we get to that part in the scripture. Everybody studied, right? I'm going to take it that you did. I hope so, because you get more out of it. If you at least read the chapter, and if you write down some questions like, well, what's this and what's that? Then as we go over it, you can hopefully check those off saying, all right, now I know. Because 1, you read it. 2, you wrote down a question. 3, you heard me talk about it and maybe even discuss it amongst the group. So that's how if you want to learn something, repetition, Okay, chapter 14, verses 1 through 3. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. All these were joined together in the vale of Siddim, which is the Salt Sea. So what's going on here? A lot of kings. War. Okay, definitely war. What else? Anything stick out in those 3 verses? Sodom, right? Who here has heard preaching on Sodom and Gomorrah? Raise your hand. It would have been easier who hasn't, right? I mean, that's one of those things. Sodom and Gomorrah was an evil city, and God judged it. He saved Lot and destroyed the rest with fire and brimstone. Okay. Brother, if you will, in the backpack there, Trenton, if you will, I shared, the slide's already shared. It was the one we had last week. Let me see. Right there, in the middle. Post-flood. If you'll click on that. All right. So I put up a side-by-side map here because I want you to understand where we are when we're talking about this battle, where Abraham is, where Lot is, and where it is in respect to the surrounding area. One of the things I have found with our youth is they do not know geography at all. Just some examples. They thought Lorse was a state. And so we've been doing some geography. We've been learning some geography in the different countries and the continents because they don't know their continents. But it's important to know your geography. Otherwise, you could be anywhere. And so to understand the cradle of civilization, as people call it, we need to know where we are. So we are over in the Middle East region. Are you able to kind of look at that and tell where you are? Okay. Do you see that reddish highlight? It says Goem up there. That's Turkey. That's modern day Turkey. Okay. And then if you see Elisar down to Shinar, that's Iraq. Below that, that's Saudi Arabia. And then left of that river that's going down there, or that trail on the left side where all those little white blocks are, it says Ashtaroth, Karnaim, Ham, Shavakirith, Seir, El Paran, etc. That is the area of Israel. That's Israel, okay? And near the bottom of those names down there where it says El Paran and Seir, over in that area, that's where you're going to have the 5 cities, okay? Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela. So, let's start it from the first set of kings. In the first part, we read that there are 4 kings. Amraphel, king of Shinar. Now, where is Shinar? Y'all should know that from our previous studies. Babylon, right? So if you look up here, is there a slide after this, brother? No? One more? Yeah, right there. Same region. You can still see the same region, but you can see where Babylon is. That's in modern day Iraq as well. Do y'all see it right there? Shinar, it's in green. If you see Shem in Saudi Arabia, and you go north, right there, Shinar. You can circle that if you will, just kind of move your mouse around it. There you go. That's the area right there where Shinar is. Now, who did we read about a couple chapters ago that was from Shinar? Nimrod. I thought he was the king of Shinar. I thought he was in charge of Shinar, and he set up Babylon and all those cities. And this says Amraphel, king of Shinar. It says Arioch, king of Elisar. Okay? If you'll go back to that first slide. There's Elisar. You see that? That's like northern Iraq. Let's see. We got Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, down there on the bottom right. Okay, you got it? You're eyeballing it? And then Tidal, king of nations, or Goyim, which is up there in the Turkish region. That area over there from Shinar, Elam, Elisar, that's what we used to call the old Mesopotamian era. Area. Mesopotamia, right? The cradle of civilization, right? They've traced it back saying, this is where creation came from. We're like, really? What genius figured that out? It's in the Bible. We tried to tell you all these years. But anyways, so we're going to refer to these 5 kings as the Mesopotamian kings. Okay? I'm sorry, 4 kings. There were 4 kings. 4 kings. The Mesopotamian kings are 4 kings. They went to war with the 5 kings near Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, Sodom and Gomorrah is across the Saudi Arabian desert there, if you'll see that, and it's over there where them green dots are. I don't know if you can see that, but it's right there near those, in between those tan squares, rectangles. Okay? So it's in that area. Do you think they went straight across the desert? No. Do you think they followed the Fertile Crescent? If you look on the map to your left, that green tinted area where it says Mesopotamia, Phoenicia, Lower Egypt, Palestine, that's your Fertile Crescent. Why is that referred to as the Fertile Crescent? Water, right? And so when you have fresh water, right, you got the Euphrates and stuff over there on the east side from Shinar all the way up to Elisar, the Tigris, the Euphrates. So that is fertile, right? Because of the fresh water. So grass and trees and stuff grows there. And people go there. That's where they take their cattle. That's where they take their sheep. So you want to live near a water source. And then as it wraps around and goes all the way down there to where the Jordan is, down towards the Dead Sea, it's fertile there, going through Israel, okay? Going down through there. So that was actually the route from the land of Ur, right? Which is in the land of Shinar. Abraham and his father Terah and Lot, when they left, they went around the Fertile Crescent. That's how they went, you know. Okay, the Mesopotamian kings, yes.
Right. They collectively united and went against...
Correct. They formed an alliance.
Right.
They formed an alliance.
Looks like they, I can't tell by that map, it just looks like they were, it just looks like they might have had more power or more, not necessarily, but just looking at that, because all those little places are kind of together.
Yeah, well, they had a lot of power. I mean, they had a lot of power. So, as they went up and around, they came down and they had the area of Sodom and Gomorrah and and Admah, Zeboim, and Bela, or Zoar as it's called, in their targets. I wonder who or what they were looking for. Do you remember what Nimrod was looking for? Remember? Now, this is in the book of Jasher I'm talking about. But remember, Nimrod's soothsayers and his dream people said, hey, Abraham's offspring is going to be your death. It's going to be your death, right? Terah and his son Abraham and his grandson Lot, they left Ur, where Nimrod was. They left the land of Shinar, and they went up there to where Elisar is. Right? Haran. They went up there and stayed a while, and that's where Terah died, Abraham's father. And then Abraham kept right on going. Now, I don't know how many years this is after that, but it's probably between, if I had to guess, when Abraham was probably around like 80, 85 years old. Okay, so it's been a few years, but, to form an alliance, Shinar, right? To go up, assemble more kings to go with you, and then to go down. If he's not the king. If he's not the king. So anyways, Mesopotamian kings are on that side, and the ones around Sodom and Gomorrah, we'll refer to them as the Canaanite kings. Okay? So that's how we'll know. This battle that we're going to read about in chapter 14 is often referred to as the Battle of the Vale of Siddim, or more commonly, the War of the Nine Kings. That's how most scholars refer to it, the War of the Nine Kings. Siddim is the area where the Dead Sea is now. Who can tell me something interesting about the Dead Sea? The Dead Sea. Why do they call it the Dead Sea? What's that? Because nothing can live there, right? Nothing can live in it.
Is that the one that is so deep that you can?
It is so dense with salt that an iron that you iron clothes with will float. Yep. And when you lay on it, like 90% of your body is out of the water. It's like laying on a mattress kind of. It's that thick. Okay? All right. So yeah, that's the area there. Amraphel is an interesting character. Okay? He's mentioned first in verse 1. Amraphel, king of Shinar. Even though as we read, you're going to see Chedorlaomer was kind of the one in charge of that area after they conquered it. He was the king that was kind of ruling over that area and the people. But here in verse 1, we see Amraphel, king of Shinar. Now, Amraphel is an interesting character. He is mentioned as the king of Shinar here in chapter 14. However, we just discussed Nimrod was the king of Babylon. He was like the emperor because he had all these different cities and stuff, and he was the authoritarian. He was the one that was in charge of it all. And it said, the Bible says he was the king of Shinar. Furthermore, historical records identify Hammurabi. Anybody ever heard that name in school? Hammurabi. Hammurabi's Code, Hammurabi. Do y'all remember him? I remember him. See, in Columbus County, we were taught about Hammurabi. I had to throw that out there in a South Carolina church. So, anyways, Hammurabi he's a very prominent figure in history. He's one of the earliest leaders that we learn about in world history. But Hammurabi was the leader of Babylon or Shinar during this time when you go to school and you hear about Hammurabi. Now, if you go to church, you're like, wait a minute. Hammurabi was the leader of Babylon at that time? I thought it was Nimrod or maybe it's Amraphel. So, well, which one is it? Which one's right? You know, which one's right? Which one's good? Most Jewish scholars identify these three men as the same person. As the same person. The confusion of languages during the Tower of Babel could spur the differences in the names. You see, my name might be Dewayne right now, and you all call me Dewayne because you speak what language? English. And I'm not going to tell you all the names I've been called in Korea and Ecuador and other places I've been. You know, it changes, right? Like Jesus, what is his name? It depends on where you are, right? If you're Gullah, it's what, Trenton? Jesus. You know, for us, it's Jesus. For the Hebrews, it's Yeshua, right? Joshua, right? If you're reading Joshua. So it depends. Or how about Emmanuel? Is Emmanuel and Jesus the same person? How about the Messiah? How about, so there's different titles. And as we read these titles sometimes, like Nimrod means what? The one that rebelled. Was that just what they referred to him as? Does our president have names for people based on their actions? You know, he used one last night during his speech, did he not? So anyways, but there's a lot of people think that they're three in the same. There is a linguistic similarity between Amraphel and Hammurabi. When I read that, I'm like, huh? Linguistic similarity, I don't. And then when I'm like, oh, and as I studied it, I will just let you know when you go back to the original languages and you're looking at it, if you look, Amra, and then you look at Hammurabi, Amraphel. Anyways, it has a similarity in it enough based on the languages that they say that the names are very similar in the original. The time periods of these rulers overlap. And in the Targum of Jonathan, which is an ancient document, Amraphel is identified with Nimrod, suggesting they are the same person. Okay? It is my opinion that they are the same person. Out of all the research I've done, I would be like, you can put a finger on a lot of these things, and I think it was the same person. I do. And my own personal opinion is, I think Nimrod was looking for Abraham. That's not biblical, but based on all them kings coming around the Fertile Crescent, they went in the same route that Abraham did, and they just kept going and going and going, and they got down to Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And was Abraham in Sodom and Gomorrah? No, he would stay in somewhere else, right? In the Mamre, the plains of was it Mamre? We'll figure it out in a minute.
He could have been staying there if Lord hadn't picked that.
That's true. That's very true. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Let's go to 4 through 10. So, war. The Mesopotamian kings have come around the Fertile Crescent. They're making war with the 5 kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, that area, what we call the Canaanite kings, okay? They're making war. Verse 4. I'll stop at 10. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims in Ashtaroth, Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Emims in Shavah Kiriathaim, and the Horites in their Mount Seir, unto Elparon, which is by the wilderness. And they returned and came to Emishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazazontamar. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar. Bela and Zoar are the same. That's what it's trying to say there. And they joined battle with him in the vale of Siddim, with Chedorlaomer the king of Elam, and with Tidal king of nations, and Amraphel king of Shinar, and Arioch king of Elasar, 4 kings with 5. And the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits. And the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain. So the 4 kings of Mesopotamia, they go around, they attack the 5 kings of the Canaanites, and they win. The 5 kings in that region are in servitude to the other kings, which Chedorlaomer was heading up at this time. He was heading up that region saying, all right, I'm going to make sure they're in servitude. I'm going to make sure they pay tribute, and I'm going to do all of this. And he did that for 12 years after that initial war. In the 13th year, those five kings, the Canaanite kings over there, they rebelled. The region rebelled against the Mesopotamian Chedorlaomer, the king, right? So he goes back. He lets the other 3 kings, the Mesopotamian kings, know, like, hey, they're not paying, they're rebelling. I need help. They assemble their army. They come back around. They join forces with Chedorlaomer, and they start in a region north of Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. So north of that, there is a sea, and around that is where your Zuzims were. That is where your Rephaims were, your Emins, your Horites, your Amalekites, your Amorites. And they slaughtered them. It says they were smote. So the Mesopotamian kings came in, went around north of the region where Sodom and Gomorrah and those other 3 cities were, and they just started smiting everybody in the region. And when they were fighting them, the king of Sodom and Gomorrah and those other 3 cities, like, hey, let's go join them. We'll fight against them too. So they ride up, they engage the 4 kings from Mesopotamia, and they get their butts kicked. And they fled, and a lot of them, the kings, fell into slime pits, because slime pits were, I guess, pretty predominant back then. So if anybody wanted to know where oil was, again, the Bible was letting you know the whole time, right? Anyways, it was actually like a bitumen. So anyways, and then a lot of the rest of them just fled up into the mountains, okay? So they learned their lesson, you know. They rebelled, and them kings come right back in. Now, let's see here. Where am I at? So who were the Rephaim, the Zuzim, and the Emim? The Walking Dead? There be giants in that land, right? So, yeah, the Rephaim, the Bible frequently associates these with giants. They were big, okay? There's scripture where it says the size of cedar trees. So what do you do if you're studying and something says it was the height of a cedar tree? What do you do? Well, how high was a cedar tree? And then you go to Israel cedar trees. How high do they grow? Right? They're big, okay? The Rephaim? Let's see. Will you go to the giant slide there? There you go, and share that online too, please, if you will. Of course, somebody's already put this together. This was not me. I kind of copied it. I researched what somebody else had already searched. So here you go. If you look on the bottom, Og of Bashan and Goliath, they were like 12 to 18 feet, right? Based on the bed and the cubits and stuff. Pretty tall. For example, I'm 6 foot 1 inch, right? Double me. That's 12 feet. Og of Bashan was taller than that. So his head would not fit in here without him ducking down. But compared to the early Canaanite giants, which are the ones we're talking about, they reached right on up there. So if you see Amos 2 verse 9, it talks about them being the height of cedar trees. So they were huge. On the far left is a 6 foot average man. So if you saw Mr. 36-footer there, but you see how, you know, things were starting to happen again, right? Things were, you know, why did God flood the earth? Do you remember? Cut that right there. That's not in His image. Giants are not in the image of God. They are abominations. They are abominations. And what does He tell Joshua and Moses to do when they go back into the promised land? Wipe them all out. The women, the children, all of them. Kill them all because they're not supposed to be here. They did. People killed them. As a matter of fact, the Mesopotamian kings came in and started killing them. Wiped them. Well, didn't wipe them out completely, but killed enough of them and scattered the rest. So they're big. They're huge. I mean, look, the 6 foot man is not even to the man's kneecap. You know. All right. So that's the Rephaim. Rephaim can also refer to the spirits of the dead. That's in Isaiah 14:9, Job 26 verse 5. It talks about the dead ones or the ones from underneath the earth. And so they use that word Rephaim. Okay? Isaiah 14:9, Job 26:5. And use Strong's Concordance and you'll see that word Rephaim used. The Repha. As a matter of fact, many scholars call them the dead ones. The dead ones. And I thought about that. And, you know, I'm thinking, when you had all those Nephilim pre-flood that were walking around, right? They were part angel and part mortal. Part immortal, part mortal. The body died in the flood. But what about their spirit? Where did it go? A lot of demonic, right? A lot of people think that today demons are those disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. And they're always wanting to possess or indwell something, right? So if however these giants came to be again, I mean, do they have a spirit? Do they? Anyways, they were great vessels. So I think maybe those dead ones from long before the flood, maybe that's how the Bible was trying to tell us. I don't know. It's just me kind of thinking outside the box. But whatever it was, they were associated with the dead ones for some reason. Either the dead ones that died before the flood, or the spirits are still around and kind of... I don't know if that's why it says it. We just think it's supposed to communicate the dead. Right. You also had the Zuzims, okay? Also known to be giants. They believed to be the same as the Zamzummim in Deuteronomy 2, 20 through 21, which reads, that also was accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt there in old time, and the Ammonites call them Zamzummins. A people great and many and tall as the Anakims. But the Lord destroyed them before them, and they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead. So they believe the Zamzummins that you read in Deuteronomy were the same as the Zummins that we're reading about now. You also had the Emmons, also known to be giants. Deuteronomy 2, verses 10 and 11. The Emims dwelt therein in times past, a people great and many and tall as the Anakims, which also were accounted giants as the Anakims. But the Moabites call them Emims. Now one thing you notice is they put an S on the end of those. I don't know why, because I-M means plural. So it's like Dewayne's is. So in the English, we kind of did that wrong. I mean, M is plural. I'm sorry? Deuteronomy 2, verses 10 and 11. So what I'm trying to get you to picture here is, who here saw the movie Lord of the Rings? The Hobbit and, Gandalf and all of that. Do you remember the battle scenes where they're all warring with each other and there's giants and ogres? That's basically what you had going on here. You had these giants mixed with normal-sized people, and they were just mass war during that time, okay? So it was definitely a battle of the 9 kings. The Mesopotamian kings, pretty powerful throughout ancient history, came in and was killing the giants. King David killed many giants. He killed many giants. To start with the most famous one, which is who? Goliath, and he was little comparatively. But it said he had brothers, and they were sons of the distant Anak, or the Anakim, where the Anakim came from. Okay. But these all kind of link back to the giants that were in Genesis chapter 6, okay? The original ones. Verses 11 through 17. Let me see the time here. All right. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their victuals, and went their way. Interesting. So the Mesopotamian kings came in, kicked butt again, won, and they spoiled the area. They went in and took the loot, they took what they wanted and left. Verse 12, and they took Lot. Talking about a mistake. And they took Lot, Abraham's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew. That's the first time Hebrew's used. For he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner. And these were confederate with Abram. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, his brother, as in like his blood, his family, was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and of the kings that were with him, and the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's dale. So they messed up. Everything was going good for those Mesopotamian kings until they messed with one of the Lord's, right? I will bless them that bless you, and I will curse them that curse you, right? Remember that? Well, they took Lot. And Abraham's like, ain't going to have that. I'm not going to have it. So, what happened? How many men did Abraham take with him and wiped out those kings? It was not 318. It was not 318.
He armed his trained servants.
He armed his trained servants, true.
His own house, 318.
Yep, 318 born of his own house. And he did pursue them. But that was not all he took. One of the things that I noticed when I first studied this years ago is I was like, wait a minute, why is it mentioning these brothers? Why is it mentioning those brothers, you know? And so I started studying it more, and of course the Bible answered it for me. Okay. The Bible tells us that he had an alliance with three Amorite brothers, Mamre, Eshcol, and Aner. Did you remember reading that now? Yeah. Upon hearing the news of Lot being captured, Abraham assembles an army to go after the four kings. He assembled 318 men from his own household, which was a big household. He garnered additional support from the three brothers as well. We don't know. He pursued and attacked them over a distance of at least 140 miles, which went all the way up to the northern part of Israel today. So he really chased after them, and he beat the mess out of them during the nighttime, especially nighttime. He would really sock it to them. Okay?
So if they were not coming after Abram, why Lot?
I do not know.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
When you think, I mean, just putting the, you'd be like, well, why did they?
Well, maybe they found Lot and said, where's Abraham? And he's like, I ain't going to tell you. Well, you're coming with us. So I don't know. That's just kind of, in your head thinking about it. But all right. What's that? Not specifically, probably not. But he knew about this. If he needed to find Abraham, I'm sure he could have. God was with Abraham, who was successful at rescuing Lot, his family, all their goods, and other people from the area. Upon Abraham's return, the king of Sodom and the other kings went out to meet him. Now, we read that, and then if you skip down 3 verses and you go to 21, it says, and the king of Sodom said unto Abram, give me the persons and take the goods to thyself. That seems like it would be the next verse, but it's not. There's 3 verses in here of a very mysterious figure, okay? And we need to talk about Melchizedek, verses 18 through 20. Let's read that. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him and said, blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand, and he gave him tithes of all. What can we learn from those 3 verses?
Something about this king.
There's something about this king, right? Okay. He was a king and a priest. Is that unusual? Yeah. Okay. What else? He blessed Abram. And Abram gave tithes to him. How do we know that? Where?
It says and he gave him tithes of all. He gave 10% of all his plunder.
Who did?
Abram gave his plunder.
Let's look at that. Look at verse 19.
No, it doesn't say that.
Hold on.
It doesn't say that.
And he blessed him. Who blessed who? Right. Melchizedek blessed Abraham, right? Listen. And said, blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. Okay, that's Melchizedek speaking. He blessed Abraham. And blessed be the Most High God, which had delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And he gave him tithes of all. When I first read this, I'm like, now I know they said Abraham gave Melchizedek tithes, but when I read this, it looks like Melchizedek gave Abraham tithes. But that's not the case. That is not the case. Because Hebrews chapter 7, so you may want to go ahead and turn there because we're going to read from there a little bit. Hebrews chapter 7. And you know, it was after this point in chapter 14 that Abraham made the best coffee. So, y'all know that one, right? Hebrews. So, I'm just saying, don't boo that. That was a good dad joke, right? Read Hebrews 7, 1 through 3. Here we go. Wait, let me get to chapter 7. All right. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, first being by interpretation king of righteousness, and after that also king of Salem, which is king of peace, without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abideth a priest continually. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So that clarifies who gave who the tithes, right? So Abraham's like, hey man, thank you for blessing me. We both serve the Most High God, right? And here, I want to give you tithes. And he gave him tithes of everything he had. 10%, here you go, or however much. Here you go. And he gave it to Melchizedek. Now we can learn some interesting things from Hebrews. But if you do a study just on chapter 14, you can learn the same things. Okay? Melchizedek is one of only 3 people that have the titles of both king and priest. Melchizedek was a king and priest. Who else? Jesus was a king and a priest. He's our high priest, right? And who's the third one? Who? We are. We are. We are kings and priests, right? That's, if so be we, But yes, we are kings and priests. Traditionally, after Moses, remember Moses now, the 10 Commandments, this is later on, this is in the future when we're talking about now. After Moses, the kings were from Judah, the tribe of Judah, and the priests were from the tribe of Levi. Couldn't be both. You couldn't be a priest and a king. See, that's why Saul got in trouble, right? He went and made an offering, and it's like, well, what are you doing? And God's like, my spirit's not with you. No, you messed up. And then Saul died, okay? You don't do that. The king is not supposed to do priestly duties, and the priests cannot be kings. It was a distinct separation from Moses and the Levitical system, okay? And in Hebrews chapter 7, you read that's what the point really is. They're saying Jesus weren't after the Levitical priests. No, he was after the order of Melchizedek. Okay? All right. Psalms 110 and Hebrews 7 tells us that the priesthood of Jesus was after the order of Melchizedek and not after the order of Levi. The Levitical priesthood was temporary and corrupt and came to an end when the time came. Yes, it did. And he was a Gentile. Yes. Right. So, yeah, he was after a different order, and Abraham gave him tithes. But the Leviticals, they go back to Abraham. But Abraham went up even higher. Correct. Very good. That's what Hebrews 7 talks about. All right, some speculations about Melchizedek. Some people think he could be Shem. Why? Was Shem alive at this time? Yes, he was. We looked at the genealogy, right? We saw where Abraham could have learned about God from Noah. There's overlap. And Shem died after Noah, so many years after Noah. So Shem is around during this time. If you were a person in the world at that time, how long had Shem been here? Forever. Since man started, producing more people. So it would seem like he had been there forever, and he won't die. So that's why some people believe it could be Shem. But I don't support that because Hebrews 7 and verse 3, look at that. Hebrews 7 and verse 3. It's talking about Melchizedek, and it says, without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life. What's key there? Did Shem have a father? Does the Bible document it very well in the genealogies? Yes. So I do not believe it was Shem. I used to did, but I don't anymore because of this verse.
There were three theories of who Melchizedek is.
Okay.
Was that he's a type.
Yep, he is a type of Jesus. That is correct. Or he was Jesus himself, right? A Christophany.
Or that he was just a regular historical figure. Those are the three.
Right. Yep. Those are good.
But what I studied, it narrowed it down to either he was a type or a Christophany.
Okay. Well, he was a type, just like Adam was a type of Christ, right? Adam was basically he's analogous with Christ. There's a comparison between the two. And there's probably a lot of people like, what? Adam? The one that fell? Yeah. But see, Adam, right? Was he without sin? Was he perfect? Yes. Did he take on his wife's sin? Yes. Do you know anybody else that did that? Jesus did. Jesus was perfect, and he took on the sins for his bride. Think about it. So Adam was a type. That's a figure of speech, like metaphor, etc., except it's called type. Okay. Melchizedek is a type of Christ. He is a king and a priest. Was Jesus? Yes. Okay. And there's more. I'll get to that. Some people think it was Jesus himself. That's probably the most predominant one. What do y'all think? A foreshadowing? Hebrews 7:17 tells us Jesus was a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So, kind of doesn't fit there. Some think Melchizedek was some sort of celestial being. What do y'all think about that? Nope. Why? Because Hebrews 7:4 says he was a man. So, with that said, Melchizedek was a type of Christ, like Adam was a type. He was the king of righteousness. That's what Melchizedek means. So, Melchizedek could have been a title. It could have been a title. And the true name we don't know, which is why a lot of people thought it might have been Shem as well. But it's the king of righteousness. What did he provide to Abraham? And see if you've ever picked up on this. Bread and what? Wine.
All through the Bible, always do the Lord's Supper.
Yeah, the Lord's Supper, right? Bread and wine. So you'll see that that's another way the Holy Spirit authored this whole book, because he kept things like, yep, this refers to this, and I'm going to keep this as a sign and a prophecy, and it's amazing how that works. In the end, I do not have enough information to tell you who Melchizedek was/is. I do not know. I do not know. I know that Jesus was after the order of Melchizedek, in that there was no beginning and there was no end. He was a king and a priest. But anything outside of that, I don't know. We're going to have to wait till we get to heaven. Everything else is speculation.
Thing that connected Genesis and Hebrews was Psalms 110.
Yep, Psalm 110.
Would it be considered the first priest?
I don't know. I don't know. I know other people gave offerings. They were Gentiles. Not Moses. Noah, Abraham, they were Gentiles, but they created altars and offered sacrifices. So as far as being the first priest, I don't know about that.
When I was doing research on it, said he could be like the first priest, that he was called him a royal priest.
Yep, a royal priesthood, yeah. I don't know anything other than what the Bible, I can't go any further. I don't have any scripture that I can point to that suggests he was someone or something else. I just, there's not enough information for me to make an assessment on that.
Also, when I looked it up, he was a Gentile.
Yep, he is a Gentile because the Jews ain't around yet. All right, verses 21 through 24. Verses 21, I'm all the ways in Hebrew. Hold on. 21 through 24. Here we go. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the persons, and take the goods to thyself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich, save only that which the young men have eaten. Now get this part. And the portion of the men which went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their portion. That's verse right there is how I know there was more than 318 men that went with Abraham. And I've heard pastors so many times, he only took 318 people. And I'm like, that's not true. That he took more than that. Took more than that. I don't know how many, but he took more than that. Okay. A defeated king, the king of Sodom, comes out to meet Abraham. Right? He ran away. And then Abraham's victorious, and he's like, Abraham, my friend, welcome back. Now, what do you think those Mesopotamian kings looted? Do you think they looted the not important stuff? No, the best, right? They're not wanting to carry all that weight, so they say gold, silver, precious art. And this king's like, hey, welcome back. I need the people, but you can take all the loot. You can take all the goods. That would have been, all of that area had been looted of the best stuff. He did offer it to Abraham. Do you think Abraham would have been uber rich at that point? Yes. Nope, won't take it. Not going to take it. I see this as a temptation set before Abraham. What would you have done? Well, I did work hard. I did travel 140 miles north and back. I did bring your people back. So I'm kind of a hero. I think a little payment. I think the Lord would be okay with that. Abraham's like, nope. Because you're not going to get the glory of being the man that says, I made Abraham rich. No, there's one that blessed me. There's one that I trust in. And so Abram, I think he had kind of learned his lesson. Remember, he went down into Egypt. Hey, this is my sister. And then Pharaoh's like, let me give you all these gifts for her, and here and here. And he took all that stuff. Remember, Egypt represented the world in the Old Testament. And when Abram took of it, just calamity struck, right? His nephew's like, well, we can't graze here. The herdsmen are having a battle. His nephew got captured, the king. And he's like, no, I don't want nothing. I don't want nothing. You keep all that. Save what my men ate earlier, but I don't want anything else.
You could look at it too, like those things of the world that entice us cause us to sin.
The things that entice us will cause us to sin, yeah. Gold, money, silver, women, all that stuff. Men, if you're a woman. I don't think women are as tempted as men, though. I really don't. Sister Phyllis, that was a big laugh. You got your eyes on somebody? Oh, I'm just kidding with you, sister. Anyways, that's chapter 14. A lot of information in there. By the way, some things I did want to point. Did I skip over it? Let's see here. I think I did. So, king of righteousness. Now, Melchizedek was the king of Salem, right? Where was Salem at? Jerusalem. Salem, right? And what does Jerusalem mean? Well, Salem means what? Peace. So Melchizedek was the king of righteousness, right, in his name, but he was also the king of Salem, which is the king of peace, right? Okay. Make sure I got all that. Yep, check. I just want to make sure I said that. All right, now I've covered everything I needed to cover. Did you learn something tonight about Abraham rescuing Lot and the battle of the 9 kings?
Going back to where, from Genesis to Psalm, where it's mentioned.
Okay, Psalm 110.
1,000 years in between there, and there's another 1,000 years in between Psalm and when it's mentioned in Hebrews. That's 2,000 years right there. Apart that Melchizedek is referred to.
Isn't that interesting? And we're entering the 7,000th year. We're close to it. I told you, I think 2032 is the 7,000th year when it starts, but that's just my opinion. Any day. And remember, 7 years before that, for the tribulation, right before the millennial reign of peace, is 2025. So when I tell you my eyes are towards the sky, I mean, now yes, there's years here and there that we kind of, but hey, I can start looking now. So even if it takes the Lord 10 years, I'm still going to be looking. I'm letting you know. I'm going to be looking because I think it's imminent. Pray that something's been said tonight that will make you think about it on your ride home at least. Yes, ma'am. Okay. So I hope I want you to think about these things. Think about the war. Think about the giants. Think about Abraham standing or sitting on a rock on the edge of a hill watching the battles down in the valleys and just,
There's a movie on something about David on Prime.
oh yeah, I heard there was a new one coming out about Goliath and yeah.
And it's, yes, I've only
Okay.
the first episode. But
We'll have to watch that.
David and Goliath,
Yeah.